Welcome to Grover Load. I'm Anthony, and here we are in the new year. I hope that you all had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I was planning to get some videos out beforehand, but here I am, finally getting into it. And the thing that I want to start with is the 12VHPWR, so the 12 volt high power connector that everyone's having problems with. And CableMod now has recalled their 1.0 and 1.1 versions. And DeBauer actually had a really good video on this. Now, I would highly recommend go check out his channel for some more breakdown of the information of what he was kind of going through. He was even calculating the safety factor, which I think is a really good video to see the difference in safety factor between the 8-pin and this new 12 volt high power. Now the new connector, should say, after the 12 volt high power one had all these issues, the new one, which is 12V 2x6, this one hopefully will be a little bit better. But one thing DeBauer even mentioned in there is to increase the safety factor, why don't you just put two of these 12 volt, 12 volt high power, but 12 volt 2x6 connectors on the device so if you do have a problem with one connection, you can increase that safety factor and have a redundancy with the second one. Not a bad idea, actually. And maybe down the road, that's something that these cards will have to kind of increase that safety factor that you do have on that you do have with the 12 or with the 8 pins PCI power connectors that we've been using for a long time for these graphics cards. Now, getting into a little bit more, with the recall, this is probably a thing where CableMod just can't keep recalling and buying the cards and fixing and trying to reselling them, right? There is a limit to how much money you make on a device or on a widget that you can still keep doing certain things in the RMA process, and this might just be as much as these, with these connectors that you're going to buy from somebody that already manufactures them and how they are. This is just how it ended up, and while it's sad to see, because I know a lot of people have bought those and were enjoying them because of how the bend radius is on that 12 volt high power connector. It is interesting. In fact, I've watched some repair shops go through repair these cars and everything else. What Northridge Fix did some excellent repairs. He has a lot of comments on it as well. And then it was DeBauer going through and actually showing where he had the cable connected, where the card had a light to show you if the connection was good or bad, and he was having issues. So go check out some of those videos as well. Here you have Seic that has stated here in the last, what was it, about 2 weeks. They said you should start using a hair dryer to bend the cables when installing the GPU, right? Because with how big the 4090 is, because a lot of this is with the 4090, that bend radius against the side of your case, you need 35 millimeters before the start of the bend, which is kind of hard to do in many cases. I know my current case is pretty big, and I think that would be very, very tight on that bend radius there. In fact, Sonic also, I believe this was a few days later, they unveiled, I think this has a lot to do with CES coming out. They unveiled a 90-degree angled 12 volt 2x6 power connector for next gen GPUs. And if they're doing something like this, to be able to plug in already, I have a little bit more hope that like a CableMod and companies like that will be able to have better connectors with a less failure rate than they did with the 12 volt high power connector. So there is that side of things that we have to kind of pay attention to here. But this connector, I hope that the 12 volt 2x6 is a much more reliable and better connector, because the 12 volt high power is not. I think that we can come to that conclusion that the problems of this connector just will not go away, and it's unfortunate, right? There's a lot of industries around this connector, and Intel wasn't on it, AMD, NVIDIA, power supply companies, right? There's a whole bunch of um, people in the community that went around and said, hey, let's create a connector, and look what we got to is a connector that is unreliable. And you know, stuff like this happens, and it looks like I should say, hopefully the new 12V 2x6 connector is a much better connector overall. Now with Seic even saying with that one still, if you have to bend it, use a hair dryer. You have that side of things, right? You have a safety factor that's, if you look at what DeBauer said on the safety factor alone and what his calculations are, you look at it and it's not a great safety factor either. You know, the one thing I don't want to see is one of these cards get in there and there wasn't enough done on the front side to get this connector correct, and you have a safety factor and a house burns down. That would be horrible. And then you have the whole thing is going to just come crumbling down on this connector if something like that were to happen, because you know it wasn't, you know, wasn't as didn't need it could have like didn't need the safety, or didn't have the safety factor it really should have had, which could be easily avoided, you know, with a second connector, right? We had these other connectors already on the market that were working, and they did, you know, you'd put them in, and right, everyone says it's 150 watt and the 8 pin, right? Really, but that if you use, and DeBauer goes into this, use the right cables and everything else, it's, you know, up to about 200 watts. Let's go on a low end, which means you already have a safety factor built in there. You use a little bit better wire. That's what, 270 watts or something, if I remember correctly. Well, that's already more of a safety factor than what it looks like the whole 12 volt high power is, and that's what the concerning part is. Now, I really hope that doesn't get to be that far, but I hope that the industry, people that have looked at this connector, start thinking we need to make sure that the safety factor, we need to make sure that the connector is built up to a standard spec, that we don't have these melting problems, because we don't want anything worse. You know, Eager Labs, what they say, the connector was getting, I can't remember the temperature when I read through the article of what they were getting on that, which is just insane, the temperature of the connector that they were having on, that the connector was taking and dissipating, right? That's some of the things that you have to be concerned about, because if you're above ambient temperature of what it can take, at what point does that, you know, cause melting, right? And there's items like this, you know, or even worse, and there's items like this that you need to be paying attention to when you're going in and creating a connector. And when there is a problem or something comes back to you and there's a connection issue, I think at that point you have to reassess of where you've come to already, and hopefully come up with a better solution so you don't have a huge negative side effect down the line, which we all hope does not happen. So that's a little bit about this 12 volt high power connector that I wanted to uh, talk about here. This has, you know, been going on a while. Ever since the 49 was released, we've had reports of this, and hopefully we're starting to get into the, you know, with the recall here from CableMod, maybe we get into the 12V 6x2, which kind of alleviates all those past issues, and we can move past this. But I'm sure with the 12 volt 2x6, we'll be keeping an eye on it, and we will. I'll do a video if there's a whole bunch of issues. Maybe even if there's not a whole bunch of issues, I'll just do a video on it, just to be, maybe to say, hey, we're finally, looks like we're past, you know, the issues of the 12V high power connector. So with that, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting and helping Gray Overload grow. I really do appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. You know, hitting the bell icon really does help out this channel. And the last couple months of 2023 were great. You guys really helped the channel grow, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hopefully you all have a great new year, and I can't wait to see as you help this channel grow as well, and helping me in the new year with this channel. So with that, thank you so much, and until next time, God bless.